Good morning and bright blessings for our summer solstice service. My name is Charlie. In the pagan community, I'm known as Carlo. The Unitarian Universalist Association's website, this page, states, many Unitarian Universalists draw inspiration from the cycles of the season, the beauty and complexity of the natural world, and the intricate relationships between humans and all the other life on this planet. Some of us practice indigenous religions and modern paganism. All of these are part of the sixth source of the UU living tradition, which states spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. The umbrella term, paganism, includes specific religious traditions, Wicca, my own path since the early 90s, Druidry, Santeria, goddess worshippers, Gaia worshippers, New Agers, and more, and along with those who consider themselves earth-centered, yet not of a specific tradition. Our worship services include writings, poetry, music, and rituals. At rituals, in our spare time, and often professionally, we read tarot cards and runes, cast birth charts, do past life regression, perform crystal healings and Reiki, hug trees, sometimes gathering by the thousands for weeks on end, casting circles and welcoming the old ones to join us. We Wiccans generally accept deity as both masculine and feminine, balanced as all things in nature, and also accept and often practice magic, which we define simply as the movement of energy to effect a desired change. Wicca guides us to accept that you can pretty much do anything you want in your life as long as you harm no one, no living thing, and that includes yourself. Magic must be for the good of all. The use of magic is known to be at least as ancient as the old Stone Age. Think about it, fellas. Your family's hungry, so you go out to hunt buffalo. You've sharpened your spears and put on a sporty loincloth. You kiss the missus and head out for the hunt. What do you think she was doing while you were gone? Drawing images of buffalo on the cave wall with spears coming out of them, praying, chanting, dancing, come on, buffalo, until you came home all excited that you bagged 3. Sympathetic magic, it's as old as dirt. The name of today's service is Witches and Pagans and Druids, oh my, the oh my, implying the sense of shock that many people feel when they hear these words. Modern pagans know this only too well. Yet our hope today is to dispel mistaken ideas that some may have about us and our paths. We'll share our individual journeys, yet keep in mind that we are not alone. If you've ever seen a bumper sticker that says, "We are everywhere," it's a pagan bumper sticker. Yet the truth is, we were always here. We never went away. We just went into hiding for a couple of millennia. This is partly why many pagan rituals to this day are held in secluded areas, woods, and private homes across the world. Well, not quite 2 millennia. After some initial intolerance and throwing some unfortunate folks to the lions, the old religion and that fishy new upstart called Christianity coexisted somewhat peacefully in Rome for nearly 400 years. The Roman soldiers were followers of Mithras. The legions had their own underground temples, which survive in large numbers from the 1st century onward. Yet before monotheism, the worship of one God, and conquered the world at the tip of a sword, see the Burning Times, the Inquisition, the Crusades, the whole world was pretty much pagan, and by that I mean polytheistic and pantheistic. The acceptance and worship of many gods and goddesses simultaneously, polytheism, and the acceptance that the earth itself is divine, pantheism, was true religion to early man and woman. Christianity later co-opted polytheism with its system of saints. Well, pagans went underground because of the persecution. The Sibylline books were burned on Christmas Day 407, and worshippers of the old ways went into hiding, scattering to the heath. The term heathen simply means dweller on the heath, the unpopulated edges of the city. Yet we never completely went away. Since the 70s, paganism has seen a resurgence that has culminated for some of us in the UUA's sixth source. Even though the Christians plunked cathedrals on the old temples, we've taken refuge and become integrated in Unitarian Universalist faith and have restored our ability for public worship, fellowship, and acceptance. Similarly, the old gods took refuge in the planets, so they will never really die. I came to the path of Wicca by way of my membership in the First Parish Unitarian Church of Quincy, Massachusetts, also known as the Church of Presidents, as both President Adams and their wives are buried in it. I was 26, divorcing, and getting some weekly counseling from my Reverend Sheldon Bennett, a talented orator with a PhD in physics. One day, as I came to see him, he was making a copy of an article from a local paper titled, "Paganism Sees a Resurgence in New England." I asked, "Paganism? What's that?" He explained briefly and gave me a copy of the article. It interviewed a local witch named Devon, aged 26, and I thought, hey, this guy's my age, I'll track him down. I got his address from the phone book, as we still did back in those days, and went by his house. He wasn't home, so I spoke to his girlfriend, Dove. She filled me in on paganism and Wicca, and then she asked, "So do you think you'd like to explore this further?" "Yes," I said. "Great," she said. "Then now take off all your clothes and kneel prone before me on the floor." My eyes widened, and I said, and she said, "Just kidding, that's for another time. Here, here, read these two books." She gave me Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler and The Spiral Dance by Starhawk, that latter author with whom I had the good fortune to spiral dance, raising energy at the WTO protests years ago. Dove said these books were pagan makers, and in my case, she was right. I did some successful spells on my own and was brought into their coven a few months later. I circled with them for a few years, then became a priest of my own coven and wrote prolifically for pagan publications in New England. I was in Salem and visited the Church of Presidents, too, just this month. I've gone to over 30 pagan gatherings nationwide and still love the opportunity for fellowship at these and local events. Pagans are a really fun bunch. Yet I've always seen Wicca as a path, even though it has had full constitutional protection as a religion since 1986. It is a path of beauty and of love and of light, and I still walk it as well as a UU path to this day.
It was 1986. A tumultuous childhood and placement in foster care had left me unable to cope with the stresses of high school. I spent so much time hiding from truant officers in the public library, a place they never thought to look, that I had read the science fiction and fantasy section in its entirety. Boredom eventually sent me into meatier topics, and I somehow found myself reading a book on witchcraft cults in ancient Europe. It was a terrible book, but I felt a spark of recognition. My chaotic childhood had included relatively little religious experience. In second grade, an earnest young nun explained to me that while Jews were lovely people, they would not be going to heaven. At that age, I didn't grasp what being Jewish meant, but I remember a sense of indignation. If my Jewish friends weren't getting into heaven, it was no place for me. Heaven was for everyone. I was a natural universalist early on. It wasn't until that horrible book in '86 that I realized for me, if any gods exist logically, They must all have an equal likelihood of existing. I began identifying as an equal opportunity believer, or polytheist, as well as a witch. I wasn't certain anyone was out there, mind you, but that didn't seem as important as the rest of the pagan spiritual package that became my center. As a child of the big city, paganism filled a need that I hadn't realized I had. I enjoyed the sense of being mindful of the passing seasons, the honoring of nature and the ancestors, and the spiritual and psychological boosts of pageantry, costume, ritual, and magic. Ah, yes, magic. There are two schools of thought on magic. One is that we somehow affect change on the external plane of existence through what we do in ritual. The other is that we create a psychological change within, which in turn leads to real-life effects. I suspect that the truth lies somewhere in between. It's been 30 years since I started down my winding spiritual path. Littered in the humdrum, day-to-day moments of normal life are interspersed jewels of deep connection with the many facets of the divine. One of my strongest spiritual awakenings came in a college geology class. Watching a movie on tectonic plates and the movement of the earth, I realized that our beautiful blue ball is a living planet. And that sudden epiphany left me awed and humbled. The fierce love I felt for my earthly home still affects me just as keenly to this day. I became part of a coven founded and run for the most part by UUs. A close association between members of the coven and local UU churches affected my spiritual development. I couldn't tell you at this point where the pagan part of me ends and the UU part of me begins. They have become one and the same. I see so much commonality between my UU community and my pagan community. There is an overlap of creativity, intellectual search for meaning, independent responsibility of spiritual growth, reverence for the earth and for community. Much like UUs, pagans are less concerned with your views on the divine, rather focusing on how those views are reflected in your interaction with the interconnected web of all being. Although most pagans might not express the idea that way, there is an overwhelming focus on walking lightly on the earth and leaving things better for those people and beings affected by our presence. The older I get, the more important to my continuing spiritual growth a group like the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans becomes. Over time, it is a challenge to keep one's spiritual path from becoming stale or boring. CUUPS provides me a place to meet like-minded pagans and not so like-minded pagans. It's a place to grow and be challenged and to network. It's a safe place for those just dipping their toes into the waters of paganism or those who want to find a family-friendly environment for their children. CUUPS also serves a vital role as ambassador between the pagan community and those of other faiths. Many modern pagans still live in the broom closet, fearing the religious and social repercussions of belonging to a minority belief system. It can be difficult for those of mainstream faiths to get a sense of who pagans really are, collectively and individually. The UU Church, through its CUUPS groups, serves as a safe place for pagans and non-pagans to get to know each other better. Any UU is welcome to join us, as is anyone who can remain respectful of our pagan beliefs. I'm Raven, and if you would like to know more about us, I invite you to join us in the social hall after the service. Thank you.
I walk an ancient path. I walk it in a modern way. I am a practicing neo-pagan Druid. In ancient times, all across Europe, Celtic peoples were polytheistic. Their leadership class was made up of Druids. Most of the professions that require a college education today would have been filled by Druids. Healers, teachers, lawyers, and judges historians, and poets all were Druids, as were the priests of their religion. But because of two factors, we know a limited amount of the actual beliefs and practices of the ancients. Firstly, the Druids, though literate in Latin and Greek, chose not to write down the secrets, likely to avoid the possibility that a stranger could know the sacred secrets of their magic. The second reason that we lack that knowledge is that, as we well know, history is written by the victor. Most references in historical literature about the Druids were written by the very Romans who obliterated their cultures. Gaius Julius Caesar and Pliny the Elder wrote that the Druids performed human sacrifice and other things that made the Celts look primitive, bloodthirsty, and perhaps even stupid. There was a revival of Druidry in the British Isles during the 1700s. This mostly consisted of lodges of men who played Druid on Saturday nights and attended the Church of England on Sundays. Imagine the Elks Lodge, but in white robes. Modern neo-pagan Druidry rose out of this revival, but with more focus on religion. There is a variety of groups and approaches. Celtic Reconstructionists adhere strictly to what scholarship and archaeology can ascertain to be the truth about the ancients. Other groups choose to make the whole thing up. And there are several groups in between. I have been a member of one such organization for over 25 years. Arnrock Féin, which is Irish for Our Own Druidry, or ADF for short. This belief system was created using what the founders knew about the ancients, Celtic folklore, and what had worked well in other ritual systems, including Wicca, high magic, and churches. Yes, churches are full of ritual, and the order of their services is carefully planned to take full advantage of human nature and human responses. Our practices follow a liturgical form that builds step by step to achieve the energy level used to produce magic, otherwise known as group dynamic. In ADF, we recognize three kindreds: the nature spirits, the ancestors, and the gods. The nature spirits include tree nymphs, fairies, leprechauns, and animals. We honor ancestors of blood, ancestors of the place we are in, and ancestors who came before us in our religious tradition. The gods come from many pantheons, some local and some more universal. I would like to give you a quick tour through a ritual. We start by honoring the Earth Mother. We ask for bardic inspiration from a deity recognized as a patron of poetry or song. I usually ask Bridget, a Celtic patron of poets, to make our words and songs pleasing to the kindreds. Then we open 3 gates. We put silver into the well, which extends into the underworld to the ancestors. We tend the fire that sends its smoke into the upper realms to the gods. And we water the tree, which exists in our realm, with roots into the underworld and branches into the upper realm. we ask a gatekeeper to transform these ordinary objects into portals into the other worlds. Then we invite the three kindreds to join us, making offerings to each. Next, we honor a particular deity chosen for the occasion. The assembled congregation is invited to make offerings in turn: incense, birdseed, a song, a poem, flowers or fruit from their gardens, or any other offering they would like to make. A second round of offerings honors any of the kindreds. Last week at Midsummer, many honored their fathers. Others honored their patron deities. We take an omen using divination tools like runes, ogham, or the tarot to receive blessings from the kindreds. And then we share the blessings in the form of the waters of life, usually juice or punch. When all of this is done, we reverse the steps. We thank our guests and close the gates. Then we feast on a potluck of finger foods and fruit. Of course, this nutshell description is only a taste, but I hope a good taste that will make you curious to know more. This religion is orthopraxic. Belief is not necessary. The ritual is the practice. ADF rituals are always open and public. All who can be respectful are welcome. Our local group is Sandia Mountain Grove. Our purpose today has been to give you a taste of the pagan practices and the pagan people who exist among you. We have only had time to share a few, but there are hundreds of types of pagan practice. Norse, Slavic, Germanic, Iberian, Roman, Dianic, Egyptian, Native American, to name a few. There are many pagans here in this UU church and in others like it across this nation. CUUPS chapters can be found in many UU churches. If you are at all interested in finding out more about paganism or about CUUPS, we encourage you to visit the table in the social hall after the service. Blessed be.